Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of the Face Your Ears podcast. How you doing, Justin?
Hey, I am doing well. I am doing very well. Thanks, Rich. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's great to see that we're up to episode 3 here.
We made it.
Yes, we made it. And I did notice on Apple Podcasts, the app, we have 2 5-star reviews. Not bad.
So that's an average.
3 episodes in.
That is a clear average of 5 stars right there. I mean, that's... Come on. You're listening
2
to
out of 2 people.
Yeah. I mean, you're listening to a 5-star podcast right now. This is what a 5-star podcast sounds like. So you're welcome. So, so what brings us here today to this third of the 5-star podcast series that we're hosting? So what brings us here today?
Today we're going to be talking a little bit about, well, we have the equipment now. We talked about the DAW, the software, right? Now what?
Digital audio workstation, right?
Yes.
So now what? So now what? Yes. So it's like, okay, it's sort of like being a cook in the kitchen, right? You've got this beautiful kitchen. You've got all of this accoutrement to make your, I don't know, creme brulee. That sounds fancy. Yeah. No. But anyway, we've got all this stuff, laid out in our kitchen, so to speak. So I think this can be a really daunting task for anyone that, you've been building up to this point. There's a lot of anticipation, and you've got all the gear, you've got the DAW, and so it's like, now what? So, Rich, what can you tell us about where to begin? So once you have all this equipment, you have a sense of kind of how it works and it's hooked up and everything. So what would be your advice to somebody who's on that part of their journey?
That's a great question. Well, as a voice teacher, in my studio, not only do I work on people's voices and technique and how to become a better singer, all that, but I have a lot of artists who are writing music and putting stuff out there. And I also have a lot of beginners who may sound great and have an awesome voice, and they want to get into songwriting or music creation. And so the question I always get is, well, how do I do that? How do I get into that? And so what I do is I have some questions that I might ask people when they're getting into this. The first question might be, what is your objective? What are you looking to do? This is just a general global question that you could ask yourself once you have the equipment and you have everything you need, the basic setup. Is your goal to start creating music, or is it just to tinker with the software, start laying things down and kind of playing with sounds? I think the path we're going to take today is we're going to assume you have the equipment and now you want to start creating and laying down some tracks and creating some music. So once you have this objective, the next thing you want to ask yourself is, what are my strengths? What am I good at? What skills do I have coming out the gate? This can be all over the map or very simple depending on who you are. So for example, sometimes I'll have a client who will be really good at singing and they can write lyrics, maybe have limited technical knowledge with some of the software, but they don't play an instrument or they don't know much about arranging a song. With a person like that, then what you got to do is kind of map that out and see where do you want to go and what do you want to try to do with the skill set you have. And people come at it from all different points of view. Sometimes I'll have people who are amazing songwriters and they have a crazy amount of songs already written, but their voice needs a lot of work, or They might be an amazing guitarist, but they want to write a kind of music where you need drums and you need other instruments to, make the vision come to life. So yeah, that's kind of like where I start with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As you were describing that, I was just thinking about how I think people sometimes get intimidated by wanting it to be perfect and wanting it to sound, like this grandiose.
Grammy out the gate.
Yeah, Grammy out the gate.
Grammy out the gate, yeah.
Trademark Face Your Ears podcast. So yeah, when people want to be Grammy out the gate, it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy of failure, I feel like, at that point. And I think that for me, it's important to have the right mindset, right? And I think a mindset of learning and being open is really important at that stage, because if you're going in with a Grammy out the gate mindset, I think that can set you up for failure or frustration at least. And so I think it's great what you said about embracing your strengths, kind of taking that inventory and really just, I think, going in with that learning, open mentality and just having fun. Once people have that framework and they know what their focus is, and let's say they do want to go in and write a song, from your point of view, what's important about that?
Well, what I try to find out from the student is, what is your vision with this? So you have like a little melody, or you have a chord progression, or you wrote some lyrics. What is your vision? What do you want to do with this? Do you want to just have it be just you and a piano? Do you want a full band? Do you want a total programmed, like, electronic, crazy kind of track with it? You got to look at the big picture. You got to, kind of, once you take inventory, and then you got to be like, well, what's my vision? What do I want with this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I, as a producer myself, I think it's interesting because I've worked with clients who bring something very simple to me, literally a vocal track and a piano accompaniment. And, out of that, we can work together to shape it into the vision that the writer had, because he or she lacks the skill to incorporate loops and samples and stacks of synthesizers and mixing and plugins and all of that crazy stuff. And I think that's really important, that like the subtext of what you're getting into is collaboration. And so I think the songwriter, only that person can write that song, right?
Yeah.
I think that's important to remember in this conversation, is that I, the producer, can't write that person's song. Only they can do that. And that's a big deal. And so I think bringing those sort of like skill sets together in that collaborative form is really important. And once again, if you can let go of the Grammy out the gate mentality and just get your song captured in the way that you kind of hear it in your mind, I think that's really important.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you look at what you bring to the table, so, I have this vision. Now, what missing pieces do I need? Let me start looking around and seeing if I could fill in those missing gaps.
Right. Well, like let's say your song, you're like, my vision is to have an accordion player just rip an awesome solo in the middle of this song.
And in your locale, you might be lacking the accordion talent
right.
needed for this kind of thing.
I don't live in Bavaria. I live in Detroit, Michigan. So, like, finding an accordion player. Let alone
the Steve Vai of accordion players.
And so I think this goes into an interesting topic in this sort of discussion, which is like, we don't all possess all skills, right? So, like, I'm not going to be able to pick up an accordion and shred. And, I think, it's a sort of pessimistic way of looking at it, but all of us lack a certain skill. But if you sort of flip that script and invert it, all of us have sort of unique, interesting qualities and skills that create incredible collaborations. And I think in today's world, that's something that we can tap into like we never could before.
when I have a student who's at that point where they're like, all right, I want to take this to the next level. Where do I go? What do I do? We live in the golden age of resources out there.
So where would you direct them? So like if you have that student that's like, hey, I have this amazing Bavarian waltz. I've notated it. I've arranged it, but I just need a accordion player. Yeah, like what do you do in that case?
They need to get to Europe. That's what I say. Nah. So, well, in all seriousness, what I would do is it depends on where they're at in their journey. So someone who's just starting out, what I would say is maybe like, do you have any friends who play some instruments that you can get together with and flesh this idea out, who you get along with and you could work with? And let's say they're not looking for that kind of thing, then I might be like, okay, well, maybe you can go and hire someone to, like, if they have some money to play with for the project. There's sites like Sound Better that you can use for that kind of thing. There's all kinds of forums and groups on social medias that have, people, who are available to do these kind of things and kind of fill in the gap. Fiverr is actually a good resource as well. You can find a lot of good musicians on Fiverr for actually relatively cheap to be able to finish off something. Like, let's say you have your guitar part laid out, you're singing over it. Maybe you got a friend that play bass, but you can't find a drummer. The drummer is always the hardest one to find. But there are drummers offering their services on sites like Fiverr, where they can take your song and maybe like just throwing out a random number for like $100 or something. They'll do a few takes over your track that you send them and then send you all that stuff back, and then you can mess with that. That's huge. Craigslist is another good resource, like the musician section of Craigslist. I know people like are afraid of Craigslist, but like, just stay in your lane, go to the musicians section, and there's a lot of people looking to collaborate and posting. Some people who just want to do recording projects. If anyone wants to meet you in like a dark basement somewhere at like a strange hour to like record, like just stay away from stuff like that.
If they have very specific guidelines like no garlic, only meeting at night, weird requirements about being invited into your house, those sorts of things. I mean, obvious red flags there.
But I mean, it might be a good organ player. You know what I mean? A good organist.
We're not going to tell you what risks to take and what risks not to take. That's up to you. And again, your vision, how you want to make that come to life is yours. We just encourage you to use good judgment and be careful if using Craigslist. But back to the point. So what you're saying, and I agree, and I've actually experienced it myself, is that in today's world, we're so connected, and somebody's figured out how to monetize that, which is a good thing, because now you can go shop, essentially, for this performance or this musician that you want to effectively hire to work on your song with you. Collaborating with a friend of mine, I was able to, so I play guitar, right? So I played some guitar on this track that we did together, but then we were like, oh, it'd be really cool if there was like this gnarly, like kind of shred solo thing. And that's not what I do. Justin is not a guitar shredder. So we went to, I believe it was Sound Better, and hired some guy like literally in Australia who laid down a few different like amazing, like gnarly guitar shredding solo things. And we ended up using that in our track. And it was fun because, it's not something either of us could have played, but then we were able to take that and sort of mold it and shape it so that it fit into our song. So it's really cool because in a way, you're letting go of control a little bit, and that can be scary and risky, but it can also be kind of cool and fun and inspiring because, you know, if you get the right person, you know, and you can shop around for that, you can play examples of people. If you find the right person, it can be a really fruitful collaboration.
Yeah, and for those of you who maybe don't want to deal with live instruments, there are resources for you as well. I know what some of my students do is they'll go on YouTube, and I guess there's some channels that'll offer like open source tracks. They'll be like, I created this track, I'm posting it here, go ahead and use it. You know, I don't care. Use it for your thing. All I ask is maybe, you know, shoot me give me a shout out or whatever when you post it, or, you know, give me some credit at some point. But, but go ahead. There's no like strings attached. So there's that. There's also websites that sell loops or full tracks. So like let's say you want a very specific kind of drum loop, and then you want to add the rest to it. You could just buy that drum part. You could kind of sample them on the site and just buy things a la carte, bring it in, and then add to it. Or some sites actually offer like a full track, like that's fleshed out. And if you really like it, you can use it. Now, with the caveat of be careful, make sure that all of it is legit and that you can legally use it. I know like the YouTube stuff sometimes easier because the person who posted it, you know, they probably get flagged for copyright if they didn't own the track in the first place. I mean, there's a whole gray area there, but I know there's some sites where that are more reputable, and we should find some of those sites, and we'll post it in our resources page where you can
definitely
start to look for some tracks for your project if you're a rapper and you want to rap over something, just to get you started, to get the creative juices flowing.
Yes. Yeah, we actually have a lot of resources that, you know, we not only use but we want to share, and so we'll share those in the show notes, so you can check those out on your own. But yeah, it's pretty amazing today how many resources are available to musicians, just outside of just technology and stuff, right? So, outside of the DAW that we talked about, outside of the hardware that we talked about. And so it's kind of cool to see how technology is impacted and influenced creativity and collaboration in today's world.
Yeah. I'm telling you, we live in a golden age of collaboration and music making. I mean, it's
yes,
unbelievable, the stuff we have at our fingertips for all budgets.
It's like the DoorDash. It's like the DoorDash of making music.
Is that a good thing?
Like, I want a heavy metal drum beat and a accordion solo mixed together, and you can just order that up and boop, it lands in your inbox.
Yeah,
pretty amazing.
And it's amazing. There's something for everyone. You know, if you look hard enough.
Yeah.
For the person who prefers live instruments to the person who wants everything, already packaged and mixed and ready to go.
Yeah, which kind of leads to the next point, which is we have to be honest about the ambition or the intent and how it changes from person to person. So some people are on a journey of learning and growing their skill set to be able to kind of be at that producer level and just doing everything end to end. Like their own Trent Reznor, where they're doing all the instruments, all the arrange, like every little thing. But that isn't everybody. And I think there are some people who are just like, look, I'm just a songwriter. I'm not a producer. I'm really good at just banging out some chords on a guitar and singing this melody I made up and with these lyrics. That's great, because I am personally the inverse of that. I wouldn't qualify myself as a songwriter. I can write songs, I can certainly do that, but I thrive in that realm of production and just being creative with the sound and just coming up with a really great mix and so forth. So that's where I'm really passionate about my work.
And I think that this is a good point, because sometimes people, they'll have their demo or their song up to a certain point, and then they need someone else to step in. Maybe they lack the skill in the production and engineering department to flesh it out and make the vision come to life. And I mean, this is where someone like you comes into this part of the equation. Manmaderandom.com, you could go to that site, and if you do have a project that you want to finish off, you can.
I highly recommend doing that.
You can work with Justin. And also, hey, if you are at a point where you want to spruce up your vocals and you want to start generating more ideas and get into more writing, you could go to my site, bozickvoicestudio.com. I think that's a great future discussion. I would love to pick your brain about what singers and other musicians and creators need to do when they're coming to see someone like you and they're getting ready to put the finishing touches on their project, or just they have the raw material and they want to flesh it out. I would love to hear more about what you have to say about that in the future.
We'll definitely table that for a future episode, but I think there's a lot to be said about what a producer is or what a producer does. And as you were describing all of that, I couldn't help but think about really, really popular artists and how vitally important their producers are to making them successful. So if you think about someone like Ed Sheeran or Taylor Swift, both of them are exceptional songwriters. However, those songs are successful and are at the level they're at because of the producers they work with.
I might contend that a little bit, just with a little bit, add a little bit of nuance to that. The raw material has to be there. The raw material 100% must be there.
That's exactly what I was going to say, was that they're almost equally important. I would argue the songwriting is probably a little more important than the production. And so, but I think that those things are such like gems, like they're such juggernauts, if you will, out there on Spotify and Apple Music, because you've got such great forces coming together. So I'm just talking about the echelon of music today. It's like you've got some of the best songwriters out there, like Ed Sheeran, Taylor Swift, but then you couple that exceptional songwriting with really great production. It's like, it's a knockout.
Well,
right?
It's like, with a lot of things, like I think the way songs are created now has changed greatly. Like back in the day, you had, an amazing composer take the poetry of an amazing writer and set that to music, and then an amazing performer would step in and do that. Now, I feel like a lot of people have to wear many hats, but I'm okay with performers who acknowledge, like, hey, I'm not a writer. Like, I need songs, right? I need people who can write songs to help me. Or I don't know anything about production. I need someone to come in and, and that's good. I think people sometimes, I notice in at least some of the circles that I'm in, some people kind of, raise their nose a little bit at if they find out, this band, they didn't write, their music. I'm like, but they delivered it and they brought what was needed to the performance.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like musical gatekeeping.
Yes, there's a lot of that. And that's a whole nother episode right there.
Totally. Yeah. And I think that's a really important thing to acknowledge, that the songwriting is important, the production is important. Every different, aspect of it is important. What's the saying? The sum is greater than the whole of its parts, or whatever. I completely butchered that, but sum of its parts. Yes. So I think that applies here. And I think each sort of element comes together to create something really, really significant. Because I'll be honest, I used to have that kind of perception as a young up and coming producer, where I would, where I was ignorant. No, I remember thinking, that person's just singing the song. Like that's, like they didn't write it though.
Yeah, I mean, that's like kind of like,
and now I have a totally different point of view. And that, I don't know why I thought that back in the day, that like, you you have to write it and sing it and do all the things. And it's like,
A
no,
true artist does that. Yeah.
Right. I think a lot of people have that misconception that like a true artist does all the things. And it's like, well, no, I think a successful artist is collaborative. That would be my take on it.
Well, and you need to know when you need to reach out. You also have to know, when the project is ready to be polished. I think this is a great discussion. I think we kind of encapsulated a global view of this. I think some things we should talk about in the future should definitely be like, how do I generate the idea? Like, if I want to write lyrics, how do I write lyrics? If I want to start writing melodies, how do I do that? I have some insight into that, and I know you probably have some ideas about that as well. And that's something we're going to talk about. Today was more about like getting a general view of this side of things.
Yes. Where the Shire, that's the word I wanted to think about. So I feel like this episode is I'm going somewhere with it. What the hell are you talking about the Shire for? So it's almost like this episode, we are gathering our listeners in the Shire before they set out to Mordor, right? And go off on that journey. This episode is about us building you up and getting you excited before you make the trek up.
Are we Gandalf or Bilbo?
We're Gandalf. We're definitely.
I mean,
Gandalf.
I could see you. Yeah, you have a Gandalf look to you.
I do.
Anyways, thanks everyone for joining us for this third episode. Justin,
yeah,
it was great to talk to you again.
You as well. Thanks, Rich. This was a great chat, and I look forward to our next 5-star podcast here sometime in the near future.
Take care.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Face Your Ears podcast. If you found this episode entertaining and informative, be sure to share and leave a review. Also, check us out on social media and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. For more information related to our podcast, head on over to www.faceyourears.com. Links can be found in the show description. And remember, whether you're a musician just starting out or a seasoned professional looking to talk shop, it's time to face your ears.